Click on subscribe, like and bell hash. In the bustling city of Veridon, where gold clinked in the pockets of nobles and merchants strutted like peacocks, there was a beggar named Elias. His clothes were tattered, his face weathered by years of hardship, and his hands, gnarled and calloused, stretched out for even a single copper coin. But the people of Veridon had no kindness to spare. Every day, Elias sat near the grand fountain in the city square, where the wealthy gathered to flaunt their riches. And every day, they mocked him. "Look at the king of rags," sneered Lord Carvane, a fat nobleman with a velvet cloak that cost more than a peasant's yearly earnings. He tossed a silver coin into the filthy puddle at Elias' feet, laughing as the beggar reached for it. "Ah! You must grovel first, your majesty." Elias lowered his head, his fingers trembling as he dug the coin from the mud. The crowd around him erupted in cruel laughter. A merchant's wife, draped in silk and pearls, wrinkled her nose. "Ooh, he reeks of gutter filth. Someone should drag him out of the square, he's ruining the view." A young dandy, barely more than a boy, kicked Elias' begging bowl, sending the few coins inside scattering. "Whoops! Seems the royal treasury is empty." His friends howled with delight. Elias said nothing. He had learned long ago that words only sharpened their cruelty. But one evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops and the square emptied, an old woman in a tattered cloak approached him. Her eyes gleamed with an unnatural light. "They laugh now," she whispered, "but soon they will kneel." She pressed a small, rusted crown into his palm, a child's toy, discarded and forgotten. Then she vanished into the shadows. The next morning, the city awoke to a horror. Lord Carvane's hands had turned to stone. The merchant's wife's pearls had fused to her skin, becoming part of her flesh. The young dandy who had kicked Elias' bowl found his legs stiff as wood, unable to bend. Panic spread like wildfire. The nobles and merchants who had mocked Elias now crawled to him, weeping, begging for mercy. Elias sat upon the fountain's edge, the rusted crown resting on his brow. He looked down at the sobbing lords and sneering ladies who had tormented him. Their faces twisted in fear. "Kneel," he said softly. And they did. The nobles of Veridon knelt in the filth of the square. Their fine silk soaked in the same mud they had once forced Elias to crawl through. Their faces, once twisted with arrogance, were now pale with terror. Lord Carvane's stone hands trembled as he raised them in supplication. "Please, Great One, undo this curse. I'll give you gold, land, anything." Elias tilted his head, his dark eyes unreadable. "You threw silver into the mud and laughed as I dug for it. Now you beg for what you denied me." He leaned forward, the rusted crown glinting dully in the morning light. "Tell me, my lord, how does helplessness taste?" The merchant's wife, her pearls embedded in her flesh like grotesque growths, clawed at her throat. "Take them off. They are choking me." "You called me filth," Elias mused. "Now you wear your wealth like a disease. Fitting, don't you think?" The young dandy, his legs stiff as dead branches, whimpered. I was only jesting. I didn't mean." "Jests that left me hungry," Elias interrupted. "Laughter that cost me dignity. Tell me, boy, if I broke your legs instead of petrifying them, would you still call it a joke?" The square was silent save for the ragged breathing of the broken elite. The common folk of Veridon, who had long suffered under their cruelty, watched from the shadows, their eyes wide with awe and fear. Then, from the crowd, a child stepped forward. A little girl in a patched dress, holding a crust of bread. She approached Elias and held it out to him. "You're hungry," she whispered. "I don't have much, but you should eat." Elias stared at her. Then, slowly, he took the bread. His hands, once gnarled and dirty, now seemed stronger, as if the weight of the crown had steadied them. "You show me kindness," he said softly, "when none was given to you." "Why?" The girl glanced at the cowering nobles, then back at him. "Because they're mean. And you look sad." Elias closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had shifted. "Rise," he commanded. The nobles gasped as feeling rushed back into their limbs. Lord Carvane's hands flexed, the stone crumbling away. The merchant's wife's pearls fell from her skin, leaving no mark. The dandy collapsed as his legs unlocked, sobbing in relief. "Go," Elias said. "But know this, Veredin is no longer yours to rule. From this day forward, the hungry will be fed. The weak will be sheltered. And if any of you dare to mock the helpless again—" He touched the rusted crown. "I will not be so merciful." The nobles fled, stumbling over each other in their haste. The common people whispered, some in hope, others in fear. The old woman in the tattered cloak watched from an alley, her lips curling into a knowing smile. Elias turned to the little girl. "What's your name?" "Lyra," she said. He knelt before her, the beggar king no longer a figure of pity, but of power. "Lyra, would you like to help me rebuild this city?" She nodded, her eyes bright. And so, the reign of the beggar king began, not with bloodshed, but with bread. Not with fear, but with fairness. The nobles of Veredin did not surrender their power easily. Though they had fled the square in terror, their whispers slithered through the city like poison. A beggar on the throne. A cursed crown granting power to filth. Unthinkable. Unnatural. Lord Carvane gathered the city's elite in his manor, their faces lit by flickering candlelight. "That wretch may have some dark magic," he hissed, "but he is still just one man. And men can be killed." Meanwhile, Elias walked the streets not as a beggar, but as a king. The people watched him pass with a mixture of reverence and unease. Some bowed. Others hid. The crown on his brow, still rusted and unassuming, pulsed with a quiet power. Lyra walked beside him, her small hand clutching his. "They are scared of you," she observed. Elias sighed. "They are scared of change." The next morning, the city awoke to chaos. The granaries had been locked. The wells had been poisoned. A note, written in Lord Carvane's elegant script, was nailed to the doors of the poor district. "Let your king feed you now." Panic spread. The people turned to Elias, their eyes desperate. "What do we do?" they cried. Elias closed his eyes and touched the crown. A vision came to him, the old woman's voice whispering, "The land provides for those who listen." He turned to the crowd. "Follow me." He led them beyond the city walls, to the wild groves where the nobles hunted for sport. There, hidden among the brambles, were fruit trees heavy with unpicked bounty, streams thick with fish, and fields of wild grain. The nobles hoarded what they didn't need, Elias said. "But the earth is generous." The people cheered. They feasted that night, and for the first time in memory, no one in Veredin went hungry. The nobles struck again. This time, they sent assassins. 3 men in black cloaks slipped into Elias' chamber as he slept. Daggers gleamed in the moonlight, but before they could strike, the rusted crown flared with a sickly green light. The assassins screamed as their blades turned to dust in their hands. Their flesh withered. Their bones twisted, and within seconds, they were nothing but gnarled statues, frozen in agony. The next morning, Elias placed the petrified killers in the city square with a single word carved into the stone at their feet, merciless. The nobles' resolve began to crack. Lord Carvane, desperate, made his last move. He rallied his private army and marched on the city, intent on burning it to the ground rather than let a beggar rule. But when his soldiers reached the gates, they found Elias waiting, alone. "Lay down your arms," he said. "No more blood need be spilled." Some hesitated. Others laughed. Then, Lord Carvane snarled, "Kill him." The soldiers charged, but their swords shattered against an invisible force. The ground trembled. Vines erupted from the earth, wrapping around the nobles and their men, dragging them to their knees. Elias stepped forward, his voice echoing with something beyond human. "You were given every chance. Now, you will learn the cost of cruelty." He raised his hand, and the nobles changed. Lord Carvane's fine clothes melted into rags. His jewels turned to pebbles. His skin wrinkled. His back bent, and in moments, he stood as he had made Elias stand for years. A beggar. The others suffered the same fate. Stripped of wealth, of power, of all but their own wretchedness. Now, Elias said softly, beg. With the nobles broken, the city transformed. The granaries were opened. The sick were healed. The people, once crushed underfoot, now governed themselves not through fear, but through shared strength. Lyra grew into a wise leader, her kindness tempering Elias' justice. The rusted crown remained on his brow, but its power waned, for it was no longer needed. And in the shadows, the old woman watched, her smile satisfied. Some kings are born in palaces, she murmured. Others are forged in suffering. Then she vanished, her work complete. Elias ruled for many years, not as a tyrant, not as a saint, but as a man who had known hunger, and who made sure no one else ever would again. And when he finally passed, the crown crumbled to dust, leaving behind only a legend. The Beggar King.